All right, so I think we had already, I mean, if you don't mind, I will just ask people to try and address these questions. Who are our students? I tried to list 4 categories there. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you have additions in who our audience should be in terms of neuroscience education?
Well, I'm responsible for public outreach, so it's important that families, children, parents understand mental health disease, how we're running our projects. So there's different audiences. It's not the typical, necessarily the typical neuroscience students, but also the public, governments who are responsible for regulating and supporting and funding the institution. I think everyone knows somebody that might suffer from some type of brain disease, and it's really important as we move forward in the research to inform the public how we're doing that, the responsibilities that we're taking, the ethical issues of it. So there's lots of different audiences that we don't necessarily look at as students, but need to be informed about the research and the contribution of what we're trying to do for society.
At least in my viewpoint, as a person that is dealing with education, my audiences are the teachers. And I think that teachers have a lot of power to transfer knowledge to others. And also there are a lot of studies that show that teachers have wrong conceptions and some ideas, incorrect ideas that they could transfer to others, and this could be a risk in my view. So actually we're giving in the School of Education a course for students. And you'll be amazed with the knowledge, what is the knowledge that they have when they start the course. And so we're trying our best, but to reach the general knowledge, to reach all the teachers, it's a difficult task, and probably we should try to do that.
Well, thank you very much. So this is what I really enjoy. I have left teachers off my list. It's in the roles of spine, but I haven't explicitly thought of them as clients of spine, meaning not just as contributors, but as having to learn the neuroscience. So I think this is already an important additional point. Thank you, Ruben. Thank you, David. And so, what should we teach? We had a very short discussion with Alois and with Christine Bantlo one late night. And the question is, who defines the curriculum? And I'm bagging them together because I realize we're short on time. How do we ensure timeliness and relevance of curriculum? Shani has showed us, mentioned how life map sciences is keeping up to date. It's a lot of effort to keep information up to date. Of course, online you have examples like Wikipedia. We know the benefits of curation and perhaps limitations of lack thereof, so big problems. But do you have any, perhaps just a quick, my bias. In terms of defining curriculum, I feel that perhaps curricula should only be, in neuroscience, should only be partly defined. There should be core curricula, and then no Swedes here, but a smorgasbord of or a buffet of offerings that can be accessed, guided by the particular interests of the students. Any comments on that?
Isn't that quite similar to what you already have in many, when you talk about students anyway, that you have a lot of flexibility in what you specialize in, and so, yeah. What's
so problem solved?
No, well, you want to extend that to high school children or even Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I think yes.
Maybe a suggestion, since we have another educational panel later on, we'll go to the online maybe, and then discuss the curriculum maybe in the next session, so we have more time for suggestions.
Great. So very good. So we'll leave that to the next session. What online models are already available? I thought perhaps, Reuven, you could elucidate some of that. I know about MOOCs and these kind of things, but I know the catchwords.
I know that there are programs around the world that combine neuroscience and education, like in Cambridge. Usha Goswami is leading one of them. In Harvard, Kurt Fischer, I think. So I suppose that there are some information there, and there are some models there, but we're not running such models here. So
what I mentioned the work by Sebastian Song. That's about that, or other forms of crowdsourcing, like Galaxy Zoo was one of the early examples. What I've noticed about a lot of those is that they don't really emphasize education in depth, but rather the sweatshop aspect of crowdsourcing. And I think we need to change that if we want to educate. And so I foresee in systems like Spine to have some guidance in terms of gamification, for instance, of limiting how much time a contributor/student can spend on outlining the corpus callosum. Perhaps after 50 cases, the system blocks and say, okay, if you want to continue being part of the system, you have to learn about another structure and eventually learn about how to design experiments. That can also be a level of education. Ultimately, what I'm talking about is reproducing, perhaps at an earlier stage, exactly our careers. That's how we all learn, one skill at a time, and then and so why not start a little bit earlier?
I was asked before about the incentive for the researcher which contributes to our database, and now it became clear to me during this discussion that another incentive is the educational process that is going on, because, for example, if a researcher asks his PhD student or another student to fulfill this task of inserting the data from his manuscript to an online tool, the student is going through an educational process because he has to learn more about his own information. So I think it's a strong incentive also. Thank you.
Well, online education is, it has advantages and disadvantages. So obviously the advantages are you can reach a lot more people and you can allow people the time to spend using it in educating themselves and sort of self-learning. But the individuals who are using online education have to be motivated and have to take the time to work at it. But as administrators of that, you also have to think about supporting that and creating the appropriate content that works with online distribution of information and education, as well as all the maintenance and support costs that go along with that. We were speaking with the vice president here at Tel Aviv University yesterday, and they did a MOOC for one of their courses, and they had 60,000 students. So, how do you answer questions from 60,000 students, and what's the workload for that, and how do you maintain it and manage it? So there are serious questions, how you work with online education. It's great to reach people with different types of content, but how do you manage it?
So that's why I think that synergistic models, the word synergy is extremely important. If research gets benefit out of the educational process through participation of the students in real research, this might be a part solution. So there are new forms of economy today. There is a so-called pipeline economy, the old model where you build a product and you sell it. So you bake a cake, you're good at baking certain cakes, and then you sell them. That's a linear model. And then there are the new platform models like Facebook, Google, that essentially provide a lot of things for free. Most of us, or a lot of us, many of us use them. and we get a lot of benefit, but they still make money, and they make money by selling information, all kinds of things. A lot is about synergy, and I think we need to together find a way to get there, because otherwise we are already sitting on mountains of data just in our field of MRI image analysis. I mean, people now would love for other people to analyze their data because it's sitting there unused. There are many questions to be asked on old data, and so I think synergy is a crucial word. I also would like to maybe.
Can we hear the student?
Yes, of course.
About Coursera
Please.
and other online tools.
It's as well a question of time. I mean, if you start doing something that you're really interested in, you might not have the time for other things you locally do at your school or in your department. It's a good source, but once in it, well, you're motivated, you want to do something, so you're like, okay, this course is interesting, I might just do it. Then you realize.
Have you ever? Did you take a Coursera course?
Yeah. I did some that I finished. I did others where you just give up. And
If I can comment on that, that's what I offered, a partnership between people in the education that are eager to learn about neuroscience and to transfer the knowledge, to partner with somebody from the field of education that is eager to do that with your expertise and your results and your data and your knowledge. It could be very synergistic.
Mira.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I think the core of these things, and maybe if we look forward, is that from kindergarten till today, the students aren't the same. I think the education system in neuro as well didn't adapt, and the synergism that you were talking about, and the education. And the experiment, it has to be built, because the kid today from the kindergarten, and I showed yesterday books on the brain research that one of the lecturers of us yesterday, to the kindergarten. So they come with some knowledge, they are exposed. The system has to be very accurate, and like we were speaking earlier about patient data, this also has to be very controlled. What do we know? What are rumors? What is the education layer that we have to add, in addition and in collaboration to the online? And the online can save a lot and provide a lot of knowledge nowadays that we can't in the academia. We don't have time. We better focus on the second stage. So this has to be worked out, and I think we are very far from that. And that includes the common outreach to the public, because that's part of it.
Yes, and so I think partnerships with education. We have a student up there. Sorry, the microphone doesn't reach.
I think I'll speak louder. I agree very much with what Myra said, and I would like to offer 2 points. It's less of a question, it's more of 2 points. One is gamification. I feel like it's been hinted with the presentation you showed, but I think it's generally very interesting to make the distinction that when we talk about who are our students, we have mature people with prior knowledge, and we have high school people or even younger kids being able to perform these tasks just as well as we would. And I think that the more thought we would give into gamification of these processes, the better off we'll be long term. And I think it's obvious, but it hasn't been stated as such. And also there are industries that are very proficient in doing that, so we should be in touch with them. I think that's one side of it. The second side of it is that I feel that when it comes to describing and teaching very basic stuff, we're very knowledgeable about this. I mean, maybe not me, but we have a lot of experience in teaching basic stuff. But when it comes to the more cutting-edge stuff, it's often very late in the game. We don't get to see what are the cutting-edge material. And what I would like to propose, and I said this in person to some of you, is that I think researchers would benefit greatly if someone here with resources would come to them and say, here, I'm going to put forward the resources to pay someone who is a graphic designer or a video maker or a filmmaker who would take your material, would create a short YouTube video of maybe 2 minutes to describe your cutting-edge research. And if you were to create this platform, I think it would benefit both the researchers, it would give them a lot of incentive to create it so their publication would be put forward to the public, and it would really benefit the public in terms of seeing what is the cutting edge research being done at the moment.
So I didn't pay you to do this because this is exactly the spirit of Spine, actually, and I am looking right now for resources to get videos. That was done. I am fortunate to have an attending neurologist who is brilliant, but is also an artist, and so he's a musician, but he put together the video, and it's amateurish. Nevertheless, it gives the idea. So agree with the second point, and also the gamification. I just wanted to precise what is gamification. I learned it in the process. I'm not an educator, and I'm not a gamification person either. I'm learning the ropes. Gamification actually is not equivalent with games. Gamification is actually becoming a more and more serious science about how to incentivize people, not just children. Children will be incentivized by, if you put, who's the best outliner of hippocampi, who has done the most, and so you can insert those elements as incentives. Now, guess what? We secretly, scientists also secretly look at their H index, at their citation index. So, the acknowledgement system in this will be very, very important, and we're working. I have a student working exactly on these aspects right now, on how do you make sure that everybody is acknowledged. The computer scientist that puts a new automated algorithm into the system to see whether his or her algorithm can reproduce the experiment that has already been done by the human operators, the data contributors. All these people have put hard work in it. They deserve to be acknowledged, and otherwise they will not participate. And of course, the contributors. Yes, Hugo.
I feel that the aspect of resources, it's been touched on, but maybe we could talk about it a little bit more. Maybe the life map sciences is a good sort of starting point. I was wondering, what stupid question probably, but what's the business model in building all this, making it available? It's great, but it's a company, right? So how does that work? Maybe we can learn from that.
Okay, so first, I'm not a businesswoman, so I don't want really to, it's not my expertise, but the database itself, I think it's not a good business model by itself. We develop other tools that are based on this database. For example, we develop a gene expression analysis tool, which people should pay to use it, and is based on the data that is deposited in LifeMap Discover.
Yes, so when you think of, for example, outlining structures on an MRI, those structures would then become property of the company, or would they remain public, or if they're built into some kind of automatic tool that's developed from that? How does that work in your model? Do you know?
I think the database itself should and will be public, yes. But again, advanced tools that are based on this database may be paid for. Yeah. But always the business model for such things is, anyway, it's free for academia, and So.
Any further comments from the students? Yes.
One more thing. Thank you for a very interesting talk. I'd like to relate to something David said. We have a group of people, which are the family members or acquaintances of people with neurological diseases, which usually, or in our times, many times it's a frustrating process, very frustrating for the family members. But we can maybe try to manipulate or take this passion or frustration to a more educational or collaborative or participatory part. I think these people, the family members, the acquaintances, would be happy to help scientists, neuroscientists participate in experiment, participate maybe in something we can do more distributed in order to gain more information or to gain their help, connect them to participatory tools, online tools, which they have the willingness to do in order to help their own family members.
Fully agreed. And this, so I must say, I personally am very torn coming from academia. I don't quite know which part of this should be perhaps in a business setting, which part of this should be. My intention is to stimulate. I'll answer my own question there. Who gets access? I would like everyone to get access. The idealistic point of view, my point of view, is that we give the possibility to far-flung students, kids, the nerds of the world that should unite through this, to, at an early age, communicate with real researchers. I mean, I grew up in an affluent community in Switzerland, and I didn't have this kind of access. I would have loved to have the opportunity to work on a real project with a professor, even though it's through the internet. But if I get acknowledged, and I mean, it's a very exciting possibility. So this, definitely these kind of things have to stay in the public domain, but how do you make this sustainable? It's a necessity to have adequate financing. The work I showed you hasn't been financed by one single penny. I've had volunteer colleagues who I acknowledged a few implicitly on this, but there are several other people, and we need to find an adequate economic model. It's the reality, but I think that we can. There was another student, I saw a hand.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
it went into this direction. So there's many nice PhD programs as well, and Hugo, you mentioned one. And I think you get excited, you may even be part of something like that, and then you realize that all the administrative work is researchers' work, and there's no one paid for actually being in charge of all the organization and doing all the administration. And it's probably there where one has to think about as well, if the PIs have to do what, like, manage money and things like that, if someone else could do that job and everybody else would profit from it.
Very precocious. Here's Hugo.
Yeah, just very briefly comment on that. In general, that's true what you say, but for this particular scheme that we're applying for, there's actually a lot of money for management, so I don't want to give the wrong impression here. That's actually a good...
It's like, if you then as a PhD student, you realize that how things are organized. If you would have to come up with such a plan, you would never do it because it's just stupid, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
So, any other comments from the students or from anyone else? But I meant it when I said that students' input is important, so please.
I may contribute. I'm a clinician, and I think one of the largest group of students, so to speak, are the family members and patients. And I think the motivation that they bring into the field of neuroscience is something that we can learn from. And I think it all starts from building this motivation, personalized motivation, to learn something. And there are many tools that you have demonstrated, some of them. I think what we should think is how to increase and focus the motivation of our students or our patients or our family members, and give them the right way to reach whatever they need.
If there are no more burning questions, I think, I don't know, Uri, you're not waving to us that we should stop. So I'm happy to continue, but, any other questions? Otherwise, I think there's a coffee break. But please, no? Okay, I found the right point to thank you all for the participation. Thanks to the panelists and the organizers.